Okay, good morning. Andy Lockwood here with a new experiment, Fact Us Friday. Good morning. Welcome to this week's experimental episode. I'm going to be answering questions weekly. Every Friday, at some point, I'm going to be posting a response to a question that was submitted earlier in the week with the chance of having it answered on the air. This is on our Facebook page, and it's also going to show up on our YouTube page. So today's question, actually, it's an amalgam of questions. I've gotten a lot of questions recently about negotiations. If you have any questions, first of all, and you want to have a chance for me to pick it to submit it live, go right to our website, lockwoodcollegeprep.com/fac-us, FAQ-US. And then you can fact us. What the fact? You might as well. Okay, so let's talk about negotiations. Put on the old cheaters here. So the thing about negotiating your financial aid award is your best bet is to have it based on new information, not information that was disclosed or somewhat disclosed on your financial aid forms initially. So there's two main financial aid forms. There's the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and there's also the CSS profile. There's other forms too, but those are the two main ones. Every college takes the FAFSA. There is no room for explanation of any circumstances on there. And then there is also the CSS profile, which roughly 400 colleges will require. That form actually has a teeny tiny little area to disclose special circumstances. In many cases, those circumstances are completely blown off. So by the financial aid office. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about new information, because the I was going to say sleeping elephant, but the wide awake elephant in the room is coronavirus and COVID-19 and SARS-CoV-2, which I think is the proper name for it. But those are, whatever you call it, coronavirus has created new special circumstances, a classic case of what financial aid officers refer to as special circumstances, which is an umbrella term for stuff that they may have professional judgment to be able to bring to bear on factors that are outside the box, so the quote unquote boxes of the financial aid forms, the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Now, before I get into those arguments, I want to point out to you why you have to make those arguments. When you're, so if you're watching this and you have someone who graduated in 2020 or is going to graduate in 2020, limping home across the finish line with pass-fail classes that are online or something, the inherent design flaw, so to speak, of the FAFSA and the CSS profile is that it is based on income from 2 years ago, from 2018. Every FAFSA CSS profile has a 2-year income look back. So what that means is it's based on an ancient time in history when things were a lot different, particularly now in the midst of this pandemic. If you have someone graduating in 2021, your tax returns for 2019 are the ones in play, and they too will not give any type of effect to the coronavirus that's happening right now in early 2020. So what do? Well, in that case, you will give them an update by way of an appeal letter, and colleges have different methods for submitting appeals. I'll tell you what I recommend. I'll tell you what I don't recommend in a minute when I get through the actual arguments. But the important thing to do is to follow their lead and do exactly what they want. Sometimes they're clear, sometimes they're not. The gist of the argument about coronavirus, and I have written probably this week alone 20 or 25 letters. I refuse to keep track because it's going to be too overwhelming for me, frankly. Is that, look, I know that things looked one way on my tax returns from 2018. However, the bottom fell out on us. Things are a lot different now. And here's what's going on. So let me give you a good example, and then I'll give you a not good example. The good example, I have clients who are self-employed. They're lawyers. They practice a form of law. I won't give too many details to protect the innocent. That was already on a downward trajectory in 2019. So that was going to be the basis for the appeal before coronavirus hit. And now that everything is shut down, including the courts, they can't even work from home because everything is, they can't make any money. They can't go to a place that's shut down. So their argument is, look, in 18, our income was here. It was great. 19, it had already started dropping, and now we haven't made anything for 3 months, and who knows when the courts are going to reopen. Colleges have, again, what they call professional judgment to be able to adjust awards given new realities that didn't appear on the financial aid form. So that is a great example of a coronavirus-related appeal to tell them about new circumstances. All right. Yeah, I can't see who's. Good morning. I can't. The StreamYard service I'm using to broadcast this doesn't let me see who's actually posting. So good morning, anonymous Facebook user. Nice to see you. Good to see me. All right. Here's a bad argument that related to coronavirus. Well, so coronavirus hit, and I am nervous that my company is going to lay people off or cut income. That could happen any day now. If I'm a financial aid officer, I'm reading that and thinking, okay, well, if and when that happens, please, you're more than welcome to appeal to us then, once you have something to appeal. But we can't deal with future contingencies. Just the same way that financial aid looks back 2 years ago, they don't really look too much at the present unless you alert them to what's happening at present, and they definitely don't look into a crystal ball and tell you what's happening in the future, or will acknowledge or give effect to what's going to happen in the future. So that's an example of a bad coronavirus related appeal. All right, what else can I tell you? There are other, one of my favorite things to have in my hip pocket, and sometimes it's worked great, sometimes it doesn't work at all. By the way, everything I'm saying, it can work, but it's not going to work for everyone. So someone asked me a couple of weeks ago, when I was, in response to my statement along the lines of, well, state schools, I don't expect much from them in terms of appealing, because in a normal year, pre-pandemic, we didn't ever really do too well, maybe a couple $1,000s extra, but state schools, state universities, public, land grant colleges, they don't really have much money. Their budgets have been slashed over the last 15 years. And now, forget it. Everything that I think I learned, in the last 20 years of being a college advisor, it's almost out the window. We're in a completely new era. Private colleges also are under siege themselves because they've been forced to cough up a lot of money. Not all of them have done this because they can't afford it. Even though they charge a ridiculous amount of money, their margins are so thin that they're not very profitable. So they can't afford to give out refunds right and left. Even a small school, if they're doing partial refunds for the last couple of months of college before summer break, that they may have to cough up $2 to $3 million. So it's a lot for them to do. They're under pressure. But the other form of pressure is that they are over admitting kids in order to fill their classes, to hit their enrollment targets. So there might be a little bit of leeway this year for private colleges. What I was going to say is it's beautiful when you have offers from competitor colleges, meaning colleges that are after the same type of student as yours presents to them. So it could be colleges in the same conference, like the Big Ten or the Ivy League or something like that. Or it could be colleges that are reputable in the same type of major, like communications or something along those lines. So when I'm helping kids, when I work with them one-on-one to help them finalize their college lists over the summer, we always want to make sure that you have a bunch of competitor offers that are about to be solicited by having competitor colleges in your final mix. Maybe it's one or two schools that are chosen specifically as straw men, so to speak, in order to solicit these other offers that we can use. So for example, right now, I'm trying to play off a couple of what I call the Holy 12 colleges against each other. The Jesuit colleges that a lot of kids at parochial schools apply to. You know, they might apply to 6 or 7 or 10 or 12 of those types of schools. They compete with each other. Okay, so that is great to have those. The best defense against these overpriced colleges is a good offense, and that's why I recommend having competitor colleges. So if you have a younger child coming up, you know, an 11th grader or 10th grader or younger, keep that in the back of your mind. All right, next, what about? You know, I wrote this in caps. You probably can't read that because I barely can. So it'd be easier for me to read, and I'm still using my glasses. Okay. So, so what about other extenuating or special circumstances? Well, expenses can be a special circumstance. So let me give you an example of good expenses that might help sway the financial aid office and some bad ones. The good ones are extraordinary, crushing expenses. I don't mean to say good in the sense of a cheerful type of expense, but in terms of a persuasive expense, it can't be something like, yeah, you know, we live in a very high property tax area, so we need more money. Even though we make a high income, it doesn't really go too far in Long Island, in suburban Massachusetts, in the San Francisco area, you know, wherever. That fails on two parts. One, it's not new information. That was the first thing I mentioned this morning. The second is they already know, well, it's really related to the first, they already know where you live. They see your application, they see your zip code, and they specifically don't consider expenses. That is one of the many flaws in the financial aid forms, is they don't care about certain things, including your expenses. Okay, now what would constitute a persuasive expense? Well, let's say you had a divorce and you got crushed by attorney fees, or your partner screwed you over in business and you had to litigate and you got crushed by attorney fees. I don't know if you're picking up on a theme here. Or you went bankrupt, or you got sick and you had all these unreimbursed medical expenses that crushed you. It's real catastrophic stuff that we're talking about here, not things are really expensive here. And I drive, you know, a Tesla and a BMW, and it's just, I have to keep up appearances because I'm in sales, you know, something like that. Okay. Okay, next, moving along. There's other losses of income also, not just coronavirus related. So if you're self-employed and you had a great year in 2018 and 19, you lost a big client. That is a great example, a persuasive example that fits squarely within the definition of what they call special circumstance. I have a client I was talking to yesterday who's in the retail industry, and she made close to $300,000 in 2018. And then in 2019, two of her biggest suppliers, Sears and Dress Barn, went out. And that accounted for a huge overconcentration of business for her. So she floundered around. She was able to pick up another job in February, I believe, at $130-something thousand a year. And the next month she was laid off. So it's a combination of, look, high income in 18, dropped significantly in 19. So things are not as rosy as they appeared in 18. And now the coronavirus came. So it's a hybrid argument, but whatever you have to tell them that bears on your ability to pay for college, that is what goes on these appeals. So most of the time, these colleges want everything in writing. It is not a good idea, even in normal times, to go visit necessarily. I would say that if I had to hazard a guess, and it's really an educated guess from talking to a lot of these financial aid officers at conferences, but if I had to come up with the number one thing that they hate or they like the least about their jobs, it's parents groveling for money. So that's why most colleges have created these systems. Sometimes they require a form to fill out. Most of the time it's in writing. And they do that in order to process the large amounts of shameless begging that parents do each year. So you want to follow their lead. You don't want to get them not on the same side of the table from you. You don't want them to be adversarial. You want them to be on the rooting for you collegially. So the writing is always the way to go. Usually the forms that they have will have you check off a box that, is it a loss of income? Is it an unusual expense? Is it other, something like that? And then they'll allow you to provide a brief explanation. There's a space for a brief explanation. Brief explanation does not mean a 3-pager. A brief explanation means a 1-pager showing them that you respect their time and be very sensitive to what they're going through. Not only are you under a lot of stress, but they are too. So if you want more information and some actual examples of sample letters that I've used over the years to help my clients get an additional $5,000, $10,000, sometimes $50,000 or more per year, then what I did was I dumped that all out of my head and I put it into a course, and I posted the link for that here. You can go to appealsclass.com, or I can't remember what the link was that I posted here on Facebook. I think it's collegeguruacademy.com, appeals-class. So it's got sample letters. It also gives you the opportunity to have me review and punch up, as we say in the biz, your appeal letter before you submit it, just to see if I can strengthen your arguments at all that you're making. I don't take on clients anymore for one-on-one appeals because I'm just too busy with my regular high fee clients. My private one-on-one clients. We're just slammed right now. This year is the busiest year we've ever had doing these types of things. But like I said, if you want me to look over your shoulder and kind of work, it's a done with you type of product, go to that link, appealsclass.com. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. If you want to have your question answered, if you want to get a chance at having your question answered, go to our website, lockwoodcollegeprep.com/FAQ-us, FAQ-us. And please, if you are finding this valuable, post a comment here. Let me know that I should keep doing these things. Please share this with, on your page, on your timeline, whatever, anybody who could use this information. Really appreciate it. And thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.